Hey folks, welcome back to Birding But Cool. I'm Peter. Here, we're in Edmonton today. We're just birding in the city, up in the northwest part of the city. And it's almost done with winter, although we've still got some snow here. But today, our bird of the day is the black-billed magpie. You might not think they're exciting, but trust me, magpies are pretty cool. They're fun, inquisitive little birds, and we're going to learn a lot about magpies. And actually, there's a couple different types of magpies that we can see as well, which you might not know. So, if you're enjoying the content so far, putting out videos every week, make sure to leave a like on this one. Make sure to subscribe as well, and that way, we'll keep the content coming, and you can be along for the ride. Before that, though, let's get into the magpies. Here is one of those aforementioned black-billed magpies. Curious, inquisitive, and clever little birds as they are. Very striking and easy to identify. And definitely one of the most symbolic birds of Alberta and specifically Edmonton. Now, there are a ton of magpies around, but not all of them are created equal. Some magpies look different than others for reasons that are a bit mysterious, and we're going to go into that today. Bird species can have a lot of individual variation for many different reasons. Why do different birds of the same species look different? Well, we talked about subspecies last week with the gray-crowned rosy finches, but that's just one of the ways. Obviously, a lot of birds are sexually dimorphic, which means that the males and females display different morphological traits, and this oftentimes is quite striking in birds in particular. However, sometimes there are even more interesting reasons as far as to why birds can be different, sometimes just as a result of rogue genetic mutation. In magpies, there's a specific example of this that's found more commonly in Edmonton than anywhere else. I was in northwest Edmonton, enjoying some wonderful little magpies on a nice Saturday morning, and then suddenly one that looked a bit different flew right over and landed in this tree. It was being a bit hard to pick out, but eventually I tracked it down, waited patiently, and got a look at this weird bird. Well, that's weird. I mean, yeah, this is not the best photography yet, but this bird is not black in any way, shape, or form. It looks like it's got sort of a pale gray coloration on its head, and then the rest of the bird looks normal. Acts and behaves just like a regular magpie. So what's going on here? I decided to chase this bird around, see if I could see how it's interacting with the other magpies, and see why it's hiding so secretly in this tree. As you may be familiar, birds, just like any other animal or living thing, are subject to genetic mutations. And sometimes these mutations, while being relatively harmless, cause pigment aberrations in birds' feathers. And this is particularly noticeable when we see them in the field. There are all types of different pigment aberrations. Some birds look yellow when they're supposed to be red, some birds look white when they're supposed to be black, and so on and so forth. This magpie, and others that look like it, look the way they do because of imperfect albinism. What that means is that the bird is not a full albino because it still has some melanin in the pigmentation of its feathers, but it's not expressing as much as the average magpie, causing it to have this ghostly gray look. In fact, because there are a few magpies that have been observed like this in the city over the past few decades, they've garnered the name ghost magpie, and Edmonton, Alberta appears to be the world hotspot for ghost magpies across their range. Now, why could that possibly be? Look at this ghost magpie specimen that's currently on display in Edmonton's Royal Alberta Museum. This was collected all the way back in the 1940s. What's so special about Edmonton that has caused this mutation to carry on in the population for over 70 years? Well, I'm no genetics expert by any means, but my best guess is nothing. Mutations like this are, at the end of the day, random. And the fact that Edmonton has become the epicenter of the world's ghost magpie population is probably based more on luck than anything else. Ghost magpies are still super rare though. By my guess, there's probably less than 100 in the Edmonton area altogether, and that's the area that's supposedly known for them. How has such a small population persisted all these years? Well, the answer lies in good old high school genetics that you might have forgotten, because while only a few magpies exhibit the ghostly plumage seen here, many more may be carrying the genes necessary to pass this trait on. Bear with me, folks, as we hop into a quick genetics lesson. As a disclaimer, I am not a geneticist, and some of what I'm saying here may be an oversimplification of what's really going on, but stick with me anyway. As you may know, organisms like birds use sexual reproduction to pass their genes on to the next generation, and any individual gets half of its genetic material from its mother and the other half from its father. Each genetic trait that we observe with our eyes is expressed based on 2 alleles, of which the bird gets 1 from each parent. In the simple case of imperfect albinism, there's 1 dominant allele and 1 recessive allele. In this case, the ghost magpie gene is recessive, which is why it's so rare. When an allele is recessive, the individual must have 2 copies of the allele for the trait to be displayed. Even if it does not display the allele, though, it can still carry it and pass it on to the next generation. To display the rough statistics of how this happens, we must consult the Punnett square, which hopefully doesn't bring back too many traumatic high school memories for the viewers at home. In short, the Punnett square shows us that 2 carrier magpies, which look completely normal to our eyes, will give birth to a ghost magpie about 25% of the time, or 1 in 4. Magpies give birth to many chicks every year, so the odds of this actually aren't too bad, as long as both parents carry the recessive gene. This is how ghost magpies can survive in such small numbers, and it's also how I have red hair while neither of my parents do. Anyway, that's enough genetics for one day. Hopefully you found that somewhat interesting and useful. Let's get to the part everyone likes, watching the magpies do their thing. As I mentioned, the pigment mutation in the ghost magpies doesn't prevent them from calling, hanging out, and even breeding with regular magpies, as you can see here. They're just one of the pack. And here you can see the ghost magpie close in with another magpie looking for some sticks. Now this is a bit weird because ghost magpies don't eat sticks and regular magpies don't either. But when I saw it fly back into the tree, I realized that it wasn't eating. It was getting material for its nest. Now, I mentioned that ghost magpies can still be born from a pair of non-ghost magpies, but the fact that this ghost magpie is sitting on a nest means it might be even more likely that we have baby ghost magpies coming from this nest in a few months. As you can see in this slightly revised Punnett square, a mother ghost magpie and a father carrier magpie are 50% likely to produce baby ghost magpies. And because the mother has 2 recessive alleles, every offspring is guaranteed to be at least a carrier. I'm really looking forward to continuing to check out this nest, and in a few months we might have baby ghost magpies rocking about in this neighborhood. How lucky for the people that live there. Thanks everybody for watching, as always, especially if you made it this far. Hope you enjoyed this week's edition of One at a Time, featuring the lovely black-billed magpie and a special ghost magpie thrown in just for fun. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like on the video as well as subscribing. That way you know every time a new Birding But Cool video comes out. We've got more coming out in the next month. Spring is finally on its way here in Alberta. As you can see, the magpies are building their nests. Birds are starting to migrate up, so there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff going on in the coming weeks. So make sure to keep your eyes on the YouTube channel so you don't miss a single bit of it. Until next time, everybody, have a great week. Happy birding, and see you soon.